Live from South Victory, this is WFAA News.
Thank you for joining us here on Facebook and YouTube. We normally on WFAA have a newscast at 6, but due to college football, it has been preempted. So for the next few minutes, we hope to keep you up to date on a big story that so many of you are talking about right now. A woman was shot and killed in her home by a Fort Worth police officer around 2 this morning. Now, we know a lot of you have questions, and we'd like to hear those. You can leave them in the comments below, and we'll try to get as many of them answered as we can. This happened on the south side of Fort Worth on East Allen Avenue. That is where WFAA's Eric Alvarez is live to talk us through what happened here. Eric, I know a lot of people still gathered at this home behind you.
Yeah, pretty big turnout. A lot of people want to know exactly what happened here early this morning. It happened here at this home on East Allen and Mississippi. Right now you can see friends and loved ones are here at the residence supporting one another, trying to make sense of this terrible tragedy. Now, neighbors say 28-year-old Atatiana Jefferson lived here with her 8-year-old nephew around 2:30 this morning, and neighbors saw the door open and the lights on. He called a non-emergency line asking police to come see if neighbors were okay. We're about to show you what happened next. This is the body cam footage provided by Fort Worth Police in its entirety.
Put your hands up, show me your hands.
Now, in that video, you never hear the police officer identify himself. He simply goes through a gate into the backyard, then sees a figure in the window, and then in a span of about 3 seconds, you saw it there, he shouts the orders, put your hands up, show me your hands, and almost immediately after, that deadly shot rings out. Now, Fort Worth police have not identified that officer, but describe him as a white man who has been with the department since April of last year. Now, remember, this all started with a call from for a welfare check from a neighbor who says police were supposed to come to make sure Jefferson was okay, not to put her in harm's way.
I explained on the call that there wasn't any violence going on, any type of arguments going on. It was simply a concern for my neighbor. I'm still kind of broken and shocked. They tell me I shouldn't feel bad, but I feel bad because had I not called the police department, she would probably still be alive today. So I do feel a little weight on me for that, making that call.
Now, the officer has been placed on administrative leave. The department says all of the evidence will be handed over to the district attorney's office to see if any criminal charges will follow. And I can tell you that is what a lot of friends, relatives, and neighbors are calling for here at this moment. They say Jefferson had every right to be inside her home and that she posed absolutely no threat to that officer. Back to you.
Eric, a lot of people who are watching this right now on Facebook are expressing how sad this is. I'm sure you've been hearing that from neighbors. But I also want to get back to the man who called to report this wellness check. Again, a non-emergency number. And he did stress, correct, that he was expecting this just to be a check. Did he also talk about his experience hearing this confrontation happen? Did he hear the gunshots? Do we know that? The gunshot, excuse me.
Yes, in fact, he did. He was paying very close attention. He wanted, again, to make sure that his neighbors were safe. So he called the police. He said a number of officers arrived, but they did not park in front of the house. He says that then he just kind of was monitoring, watching. He heard a gunshot, and he didn't know what had happened. And then a few moments later, a lot of other police officers arrived on the scene. He said he did not know who had fired the shot, who had been struck, if that person, had survived. He didn't know for quite some time, and that's what really seems to have bothered him is he didn't know, and just kind of the emotion in his voice when he was saying that he almost wishes he hadn't made that call, but of course in that moment he could not have foreseen what took place here early this morning.
Sure. Eric Alvarez for us live in Fort Worth. Eric, thank you for that update. Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Price sent out this statement today. Writing a statement like this is tragic and something that should never be necessary. A young woman has lost her life, leaving her family in unbelievable grief. All of Fort Worth must surround Atatiana Jefferson's family with prayers, love, and support. Chief Kraus and his command staff are acting with immediacy and transparency to conduct a complete and thorough investigation. More details are forthcoming, and the Tarrant-County District Attorney Law Enforcement Incident Team office will ultimately receive this case. Now, we are already starting to see community members react to this shooting, and to say that they are angry would definitely be an understatement.
It's sad enough that our young men are being killed. But when our women are not safe, as men in our community, we are called to stand up and protect the women in our community. That's right. And when our women are not safe, then it's going to get to a point that we can no longer be passive. There you go. At some point, we have to fight aggression with aggression. As pastors and Christians, yes, we're called to love. We're called to forgive, but we're not called to be fools. That's right. And it's time out for you continue to kill the people in our neighborhood and expect us to be passive. So again, I'm with Bishop Kirkland. When I first got involved with this is what I said. What bothers me with us as a community is 2 or 3 weeks we'll be upset, we'll be angry, and then we'll go on with life. But what we're finding out, if we stop for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks later, somebody else may be killed. So we got to stand up as a community and let them know that we're sick and tired of our young ladies being killed. We're sick and tired of our sons being killed. And the thing with this, you can't say she had a gun in her hand. It don't matter if she did, because in all actuality, if the Castle Doctrine could have stood in the Ambergaga trial, then it could have stood in this one. She had a right to protect herself if she's in her own house. And if you are outside of my house, walking outside of my window, and there is a gun in my house, as a person that has property and is the rightful property owner, I have a right to protect myself. So I want to find out how you're going to twist this one, how you're going to turn this one to try and make it seem as though it's justified for you killing this lady in her house. And the next thing I would like to say to Chief Krause, Mayor Betsy Price, and all the city officials, we're not asking for a suspension. And I'm saying as a community, we're not asking for a suspension. We're asking for termination. We're not going to allow you to tell us he got suspended for 30 days and we applaud you and say, job well done. This person, whoever it is, male or female, does not need to be on the streets. Because if that was me and I killed somebody that was in their own house, me knowing from dealing with the system, y'all gonna put me in prison and put me in there for a long time. So we cannot allow this woman to do this or this man to do this, keep their job, and then not label them as what they are, and that is a murderer. That's right. So again, we're calling on our communities to understand, and I'm with Bishop. No, we're not here to sell our people out. No, we're gonna fight hand, feet, tooth and nail for our communities. Because in all actuality, I think this is what people miss. We just like y'all. That's it. I don't care how many tables we go sit at. If they catch me at the wrong time in the wrong place, it could be Pastor Rodney McIntosh that get killed, just like they done this woman.
Now, at this point, I want to bring Kevin Reese into the conversation. He's been hearing from neighbors and also those faith leaders in the community we just heard from. Kevin, it seems that the anger has really just grown as we see the video and get more information about what happened here.
And it continues to grow with the relative silence from the Fort Worth Police Department. That's what's bothering folks the most right now. I want to give you a vantage point where we are right at this moment. We are at the side of the house. This is where the officers approached, walked along the side of this, which is actually one of the nicer houses in this neighborhood, walked through that fence into the backyard, and that's where that single shot was fired. What bothers the neighbors right now, you're going to hear from more of them in a moment, is there are no police here right now. They have released a portion of that body cam video. They've released one photo of a gun inside that house after the fact. They've had a written press release, but that is it at this point. No news conference has been called. Fort Worth Police say they will not be talking anytime soon. So community leaders, for a number of reasons, including those, are incensed, and of course, they are making obvious comparisons to the death of Botham Jean in Dallas. This is part of what those community leaders had to say earlier today.
If the officer is at fault, then the officer must suffer the consequences, because you cannot continue to kill people and justify it because they're law enforcement.
So our concern is this. Number one is that as in Dallas in Botham Jean's case, police entering the house. This time the police took it a step further, and she was in her own place and shot and killed her. That is not only unacceptable, that's murder. That's right. The Fort Worth police murdered this woman. Don't paint this sister as no villain. That's right. If you do that, if you paint this sister as a villain, this city gonna have hell to pay. Don't paint the sister as no villain. They're the ones who murdered. They murdered her, and there's no excuse for it. None. That's it.
I call on the police department to be totally transparent, starting immediately, to not hide anything, to not withhold anything from the community of Fort Worth. We're tired of this, and it's going to stop.
And we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we're going to keep on talking about this until justice happens. We're crying out to the Lord. I only recourse at this point is for God Almighty to hear our cry and come see about us.
And so, yes, community leaders have spoken out already today. We do expect more reaction here as the night goes on. But again, according to what the neighbors have told us, those officers approached with no lights, no sirens, parked around the corner and walked up to the house in the dark. So people want more answers. They want more words from the Fort Worth Police Department right now that they are not getting. And we'll continue to ask those questions as the night goes on and as this investigation gets underway. Marie, back to you.
Kevin in Fort Worth for us. Kevin Reese, thank you so much. And it's true, like he said, we're hearing from so many of you in these comments right here, asking about procedure, asking about police response. What is normal when someone is walking up to a house? Does the type of phone call, as it was called in on this non-emergency number, make a difference here? Those are the questions we're asking. We're looking for that from not only Fort Worth Police, but other law enforcement experts. We're working to bring you that tonight. And as we continue our coverage both online and on air at WFAA.com and after the game this evening, we'll continue to follow this, and the latest information will be always shared online first. We appreciate you being with us here. Continue to leave us your feedback in the comments below.